Hey guys, welcome back to some more reviews. And as you guys can probably tell, the video quality is probably a lot better than it usually is. It's back in HD mode. Now this takes a little bit longer to upload, but I figured that since the quality is better, that I'll leave it on this because it is better quality. And so the videos will be HD. Like I think it's HD. I remember setting it back to HD, so that's why the video quality is a lot different. But as you can see, I'm talking about the Cabin Fever movies. That's because I haven't seen the remake yet, and I want to review these three movies. And then when I'm done reviewing these three movies, whenever I see the remake, I'll see that and most likely rant on that because it gets a 3.0 on IMDb. It's like a 3 point what? 3.7. So most likely it'll be a rant. So when I rant, most likely on that movie, then I already have these movies reviewed, and thus I'll have, boom, the Cabin Fever franchise will be reviewed. Now, those of you that remember a couple years ago on Valentine's Day, I reviewed these movies because I want to be different. Everybody else talking about Valentine, that horror movie Valentine, or people talking about My Bloody Valentine, which I wanted to do last year. In 2015, I wanted to do that for last year's, Valentine's Day. But unfortunately, I was too busy and I couldn't get to those reviews. So hopefully this year I'll be able to do some reviews of My Bloody Valentine. So I'm going to save those reviews until, February. I want to save those reviews until Valentine's Day. And a couple years ago I reviewed these movies. Around the time I think the newest movie, well, of course the newest movie was Patient Zero, which at the time was very new. And the Cabin Fever franchise, I don't know. I mean, I like the original film, which we're talking about the original movie in this review, Cabin Fever. Not much designed to this disc. All it says is Cabin Fever. Pretty lazy looking DVD disc. But the first Cabin Fever, I think, is pretty decent. It's okay. I enjoy it. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's a classic or a modern day classic, but I enjoy it. I think it's a good movie. And then I don't really have the case. I think I lost the case, but I did keep it in this case. So pretty much just keep that DVD in this case. Cabin Fever 2, or not Patient Zero. Sorry, Spring Fever. Cabin Fever 2, Spring Fever, which came out in 2009, I believe. Yeah, 2009. And I'm not a fan of the sequel. I'm not a fan of it because I think it's just too over the top. And yes, it does have some great gore effects to it. It's definitely a gross out movie, but the humor and the unlikable characters and the over the top characters, they just didn't work. The humor sometimes didn't work. It really got annoying, the humor. And I don't mind the idea of taking place in a high school on prom night. I don't mind that idea, but it was just the ending was stupid, which I do understand the producers got involved with this movie, and that's why we got that ending because the producers, I guess, got involved and had the director Ty West basically redo the ending, which is why we got that freaking ending, which I believe was Ty West. Who would go on to do a movie called The Innkeepers and what was it called? The House of the Devil or something like that. I think it's called The House of the Devil. And he basically went on to go direct those movies. Let me check real fast, see if he did do The House of the Devil. Because I know that he did a movie called Innkeepers, which I heard bad things about. Yeah, House of the Devil, 2009. He also directed The Sacrament, which I heard about. He also directed a segment in VHS, The Second Honeymoon. He also did the M segment in ABCs of Death, which in that case I enjoy the sequel a little bit more than the original ABCs of Death. I still think the original ABC of Death is decent, but I'll review that movie one day. ABC of Death 2, I got to review that movie one day. I forgot to review the sequel. And I will review it one day. It's definitely on my to-do list to review ABC of Death Part 2. But yeah, I mean, Cabin Fever 2 just got a lot of over-the-top characters I don't care about. The acting's pretty bad in this movie, and the movie's just too over the top. It got too goofy. The humor just didn't work, and I didn't really enjoy Cabin Fever 2. Cabin Fever 2 Spring Fever. If I called it Patient Zero by accident, I'm sorry. I keep calling it Patient Zero by accident. But yeah, Cabin Fever 2 Spring Fever. I don't like the film. Cabin Fever Patient Zero. I seen like 20 minutes of it, and I almost fell asleep. So it's gonna be a chore to watch that movie, but I will watch it for the sake of doing these reviews. But I was 20 minutes into the movie. I could not finish it. I was bored, and it was terrible so far. So yeah, I'll review Cabin Fever Patient Zero. It's on Netflix. I'm not paying for the movie. Actually, you know what? I'll pay for it if it's very cheap. If it's like $3 or $4, find like a $3 bin or a $5 bin, or it's a good price on the movie, then I'll buy it for the collection. Same with the remake. I mean, the remake is gonna suck, but if I find it for a cheap price for the sake of the collection, I'm gonna buy it on DVD. If it's cheap, if it's like $20, I'm not gonna buy it. I'm definitely not gonna get the Blu-ray for Patient Zero or the remake so far. And it's like, well, you haven't even seen the remake yet. The movie gets a 3.7, a 3.7 on IMDb. Plus, people are saying exactly what I said about it with the trailer play. How it pretty much is a copy and paste remake. How it's a shot-for-shot remake. And that's pretty much what I thought about it when I seen that commercial. I'm like, this is like a lazy shot-for-shot. The atmosphere looked cheap. The actors and actresses didn't look like, no good characters. The acting looked pretty poor in that movie. The acting in the movie looked like it sucked. And like I said, the big problem with the trailer that I seen was it's like a shot-for-shot remake. So yeah, I mean, it's most likely going to be a rant because I've heard it gets a 3.7 on IMDb. But yeah, Patient Zero is going to be a chore to sit through, but I'll get the review done just because so that I can get the franchise review, and so I can do the franchise, the Cabin Fever franchise. Got to review Patient Zero, but I'll rant on it. It's because it pretty much sucked so far from what I've seen. 20 minutes of freaking sucked. But yeah, I'll see Patient Zero, and then I'll wait to probably do some more reviews on other films until I see the Cabin Fever remake. And then I'll rant on that or review it or whatever. Most likely going to be a rant. And then, like I said, that'll be the Cabin Fever franchise. But Cabin Fever 1 came out in 2002, gets a 5.6 on IMDb. Core, directed by Eli Roth. This is his first film. And I'm a fan of two Eli Roth films. I'm a fan of Hostel, and I'm a fan of Cabin Fever. I'm not a fan of Hostel Part 2. The Green Inferno I was interested in, but I've heard a lot of bad things about it. And Knock Knock, I've heard some good things about that, so I might watch that movie. I might watch that movie. I mean, I've heard good things about it. And yeah, this is pretty much his first movie. He only made like a TV. He only made like a short, and it says right here a TV series in 1999. But this is pretty much his first film. And the movie, in my opinion, it's a good film. I enjoy it. It's definitely a good horror film. Is it flawless? Is it a magnificent horror film? No. There's definitely problems to it, which I'll get to. But I thought the film as a whole was a pretty decent, pretty good horror film. And the good thing about the movie is that, of course, there's practical effects in the movie, great makeup effects. The idea, in my opinion, is great. The skin disease killer, sort of this, like I said, disease that spread through the water. Really cool idea. The cast is likable. Characters are likable. Some of the humor worked. Some of it didn't. But most of it worked. I like the atmosphere of the woods. And the score I didn't mind by Nathan, who I forgot his name, Nathan something. Try to see who did the score here. I wish I had the case so that I could see who did the score. But I know Nathan Barr did the music for Cabin Fever. He also did music for Hostel, and I enjoy the score. Sort of a backwoods, banjo, messed up banjo kind of score. I enjoyed the music to the movie. And the plot is simple. I mean, you got these 5 college graduates going out to the woods to party and have sex and, smoke weed and dope and, well, the same thing, smoke dope and drink and have some fun out in the woods in a cabin. And pretty much at the beginning of the movie, you have this homeless guy finding his dog dead, and he goes to open up the dog, and the freaking dog like splits open, and blood squirts all over him, and he's infected by the disease. And then, later on, he goes to the cabin, and these people are telling him to get away from them, and he keeps going towards them, and they end up setting him on fire. He ends up going to a lake to get the fire out, but he ends up dying in there. The body ends up rotting in the lake, and that lake water goes to the cabin, and one by one these kids are getting infected and sick, and one by one they each get the skin disease. And it's a really gruesome idea because there will be these parts of the movie that are really suspenseful because you're not really sure who drank the water and who didn't, and it's really suspenseful how these people get the water, and you're like, oh, don't drink the water, man, don't drink it, but they don't know it's infected, so it's very suspenseful. Gotta say that's a very suspenseful idea. You don't know who's infected, who drank the water, who didn't, and you go on, hey, don't drink that water, it's infected. It's definitely a cool suspenseful idea of having who drank this water, and that this water is infected, but the people in the movie they don't. Definitely a cool idea, and the gore effects are done very well. I mean, these kids end up, some of them end up like rotting to pieces. This one chick, Karen, who she's pretty much put in this barn, sort of, or this shack, or the shed. I don't really know. I think they call it a shed. And I guess it would be a shed. She gets put in there and locked in there because she's sick. And by the end of the movie, her freaking face is all rotten off, and it's definitely a very gruesome scene. And the characters, you got Ryder Strong playing Paul. Ryder Strong would also go on to be in Pulse 3. He would also go on to be in a freaking cameo in Part 2, which I won't talk about it. Well, I might as well. I mean, that was made in 2009. But you bring him back in that movie to have him hit by a freaking bus. That's all that Ryder Strong comes back in that movie to do. And plus, his face has so much makeup on, you can't even tell it's Ryder Strong. But no, they really got Ryder Strong to come back, walk out into the middle of the road, and get hit by a freaking bus. And the first freaking few minutes of the freaking movie, of Part 2, you see Ryder Strong get hit by a freaking bus. I'm like, great, sequel, that's how you treat your cast, that's great. Just kill off the character from the last movie, the lone survivor, which I get he had the disease, so it wouldn't have lasted that long. But still, I mean, to have him get hit by a freaking bus, it's like, great. But he would have died anyways, I mean, he was already infected. But you got Ryder Strong playing Paul, likable character. You got Karen, likable character. Pretty much all these characters are likable. You got a few jerks in there, like Jeff and Bert. Bert played by James DeBello, who would be in Detroit Rock City, or he was from Detroit Rock City. And you also got Marcy, played by Serena Vincent, who is known for Not Another Teen Movie, Power Rangers, Lost Galaxy, and Return to the House on Haunted Hill, which I've seen a little bit of it. Surprisingly gory, definitely surprised me with the gore, but I didn't see it all the way through yet. So once I watch all the way through, I'll have like a full, I'll have my opinion on the movie, my full opinion on the movie. I haven't seen it all the way through yet, but it surprised me with the freaking negative effects. I mean, definitely a gory film. But you got Serena Vincent playing Marcy. You got Joey Kern playing Jeff. Joey Kern from Super Troopers. That hilarious scene where they have to eat the weed and the one guy's tripping out. Freaking crazy scene. This funny scene. Hilarious. But he did a good job in this movie. Him and Bert are sort of the jerk characters, but You don't really hate them. They're just sort of jerks. Bert, more of a jerk. Has a BB gun, goes around shooting squirrels and stuff like that. Lighting tires on fire. Steals a Snickers bar. And that hilarious scene where he's like, son, that this guy comes out of the store. He's like, son, give me one good reason of why you would steal a Snickers bar. He's like, sorry, man. Here you go. And definitely a funny scene. And, pretty much, like I said, they drink the water. Each one of them gets infected by this skin disease. Bert ends up getting infected, and he's scratching away at his neck and blood and stuff like that. The Marcy character, she's in this really, really well done scene where she's in the bathtub, and she's shaving her legs. And every time that she pulls the razor back, she's cutting off more and more of her skin. So she'll shave this part, pull off a little bit of skin, you're like, oh crap. Shave it again, pull off till you see the freaking meat. And it was just freaking bloody and gruesome, and definitely a very gruesome scene. And then she pretty much gets eaten by a dog, because dog smells her blood and it pretty much eats her. Karen pretty much rots until she's dead. Like I said, she's in the shed, and then she pretty much by the end of the movie is all rotten. Her face is all, you can see her jaw and some parts of her face. Definitely a gruesome scene as well. And the character, Ryder Strong's character, Paul, has to figure out what to do. So he ends up going down to this lake, finds out that this lake had the body in it. That's what caused the virus to infect the skin disease to infect the water. And he falls in there. Bert gets shot in the head because pretty much you have this scene that was not funny. It was goofy. It was over the top, and it was a freaking I don't get it sort of scene where there's this kid looks like he's wearing a freaking wig. He freaking goes pancakes and does like karate flips and just does all these flips right towards Bert, bites his hand, and then the guy's like, "You got my kid sick," and come on guys, let's shoot this guy. And then these hillbillies chase after Bert, chase him back to the cabin. Well, Bert, when he gets there, gets his freaking head blown off, practical effects. And then Paul pretty much fights them off, just takes a screwdriver in one guy's ear. And I guess that was the same screwdriver from Dawn of the Dead. That was cool. They got the screwdriver from Dawn of the Dead. Sort of like how in Hostel they got the Kill Bill effect. Where in Hostel, I don't know if I mentioned this in my review for Hostel, but in Hostel, this guy gets his ankle slit. That's the effect from Kill Bill. So it was really cool that they got that effect from Kill Bill. And here it's Dawn of the Dead, where this guy gets like a freaking screwdriver in his ear. Because this one guy gets, like, he's pretty much two other guys get shot. This guy's holding a toolbox. He's just like, what do I do? It was definitely just a funny scene. He just sort of like, what do I do? He just holding his freaking, actually I think he's holding ammo. He's just holding the ammo like, what do I do? It was just sort of funny. And Paul gets out of there. That's when he falls into the lake. And then pretty much he goes to this character named, try to see who it was. He would go on to be in part 2. He had a bigger part in part 2. Deputy Winston, played by Giuseppe Andrews. He did a good job in this movie. In part 2, not so much. More of an annoying character in part 2. But in this movie, he did a good job. Shows up, and he's like, the party man. And he's like, pretty much, the cool, well, not really the cool cop, but the cop that would not get somebody in trouble. He's like, it's okay, man, it's okay. You had a party, man, I understand. And it's sort of one of those cops that doesn't really care, like, let things slide, doesn't really care. He's just like, oh, you're the party man, party man. It would just, I know it doesn't sound like it, and if you watch the movie, you understand what I mean. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say he was a likable character, but he wasn't as annoying as he is in part 2. In this movie, he's sort of the character that's okay, I guess, decent. He did a good job acting wise. But in the second movie, he was just more annoying. Here, you know, at least he wasn't as annoying as he was in part 2. But, he pretty much goes, later on in the movie, he goes up to the character Ryder Strong's character, Paul, um, goes up to him because he's out in the park, pretty much in this road, and they're having this party. And then the character Paul goes up to this dude, goes up to pretty much his friend, and starts puking blood up. And then ends up freaking, I think he actually hits the Zombie Andrews character. And then you got Paul being taken into the hospital. I think even before that scene that he pukes some blood on people, there's actually a scene where he's driving the car and a freaking deer goes right to the freaking windshield. Practical effects. And pretty much Ryder Strong's character Paul gets taken into the hospital, and another stupid scene, which I guess leads into part 2. That's probably why they had it in this movie, but it just was kind of stupid, where he goes by this one room, and there's a freaking dude in a bunny suit. I don't know why the freak it's in the movie. He just goes by this one room, and there's a freaking dude in a bunny suit. Didn't make sense. I guess you could say it made sense because it led to the sequel, but, still, I mean, it just didn't make sense. It was kind of stupid. And so you got that happening, sort of random, didn't make sense. And then, the Ryder Strong character pulls up his shirt, has the skin disease on his stomach, and then he wakes up in the back of this car, and he got Zombie Andrew driving him, pretty much driving the police car, while the character Paul's in the back seat. And he's like, the party man's awake, pretty much, and then the movie ends. And like I said, it's a good movie. I enjoy it. It's definitely a decent film. But there's some problems with the movie. Like sometimes the humor didn't work. Sometimes there's random things in the movie that just did not work. Like the freaking dude in the bunny suit, and then the freaking kid going pancakes and doing karate flips and stuff like that. And negative effects were definitely well done. Suspense was there. Good idea. Likeable cast. Good characters. Decent acting. Wrong finger over here. So yeah, decent score. Didn't mind the music. And yeah, just in my opinion, a pretty decent film. Very decent sequel. Not sequel. Freaking sorry. Not a decent sequel, but a decent first film and a decent movie altogether. So yeah, thanks for watching my review on Cabin Fever, and I will see you guys on the next review, which will be a rant tomorrow on Cabin Fever 2, Spring Fever. So thanks for watching the review, and I'll see you guys later. See you guys in the next review. Bye guys.